We had the very sad news that came in yesterday, that the former GAA president and Monaghan manager Seán McCague had passed away at the age of 77. Beloved, I know he was much loved husband of Bernie and his daughters as well, Paula, Nuala, Martha, Frida and Emma. Plenty of sons-in-law, grandchildren as well. So really, really sad day for the GAA. We have on the line now to pay tribute to Seán's life and career the former Monaghan player and legend as well, Eugene Nudie Hughes, and the Scottstown manager and a nephew of Seán's, David McCague. Morning, lads. How are things?
Morning, Seán. David.
Thanks a million for joining us, lads. And look, first off, condolences to both of you, of course. This is yesterday was a sad day for the GAA, for Monaghan GAA in general. David, I know it must be so tough for yourself and the family to process this. I know Seán's had an illness for the last number of years, but a really sad day, and it's kind of inspiring to see some of the stories being shared about him since he's passed away as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose that's the overriding emotion, Seán, is sadness, but one of pride as well. When we see the impact that he had on so many lives and so many people. I think one of the words that have been used mostly around Seán over the last few days has been leader, and the leadership qualities that he possessed. And I know there's a huge industry developing around leadership coaching and leadership modelling over the last few years. I suppose I've been lucky on reflection in my time knowing Seán that I suppose I got a live lesson in leadership and modelling leadership values through his vision, his inspiration, but most of all I suppose his value of people. And I think that's something that the warmth that he showed towards other people and the influence that he weighed on those people, and always positive influence. And I suppose how he made them feel was how he communicated that influence. And again, that's something that's come to light not only the last few days, but the last few years, reflected on his influence on us as a family and as us as a community in the Scotstoun GAA club and in Monaghan, the Monaghan GAA circus, but also nationally as well. That just that warmth of personality, that gravitas that he had, that attracted people to him. And then once you were attracted into Seán's presence, he could elevate you to a sense of and a feeling that really, I suppose, lifted you, and that was a real personal quality of his that I haven't seen in too many others.
Just reading there the tributes today, David, it was like to be a good man manager, there's no manual. Like, it's not like, because if it's contrived, you'll be able to see through that. Like, what were the qualities that made him such a natural, I guess, man manager and a natural inspiration to everyone?
Yeah, I suppose first of all it was his genuineness. He had a genuine interest in people, and that was evident in all his interactions with people. Actually, Johnny, you mentioned man management, and maybe Nudie might speak to this, but there's a huge investment in sports psychology at the moment. And it's when Nudie started out back in the 70s. I know their own team here in Scotland in 74 was a breakthrough championship. That Seán was the manager, but he's also the sports psychologist. And I say that I suppose that ability to elevate other people and give them a sense of their own self-esteem and their own self-worth, and that transcended into their performance in the field. And again, I had a brief taste of myself. He took over a very unfancied Scotstoun team in 2004. That was post his time as GAA president. That was again his humility as well, to go back to the coalface, to take on, as like I said, an unfancied senior team. And Blaney, that was Nudie's club, were sort of the kingpins at the time. I remember we beat Blaney in the championship, and again, for me as a young player, this was something I could only dream of. But Seán, I suppose, you dealt in as his inspiration, and he had that vision and belief and genuine belief that this unfancied Scotstoun team could take on the likes of Castleblaney at that time. And I think that was the psychology that he used us as young men at that time. Was, I say, a lesson in motivation and a lesson in leadership. So his man management skills went down to that genuine belief in people and in their qualities, and a sense of place as well. Like Seán managed Scotstoun, he managed Monaghan. He had no real ambition to manage anywhere else, even though he did do a stint with Eugene McGee with the Irish team. But I say just that sense of place and his belief in the people of his own place was really powerful.
That leadership was certainly paramount when it came to Seán, and obvious. I know, David, you're the principal now in St McCartan's College in Monaghan, and Seán for many years was principal in Sculwara St Mary's National School. He was my own principal for a couple of years as well. Like, one of those people, when he spoke, you listened. Like, even Nudie, from your perspective, as David was saying there, I mean, he was the manager of Monaghan through such a successful period, and you were a pivotal part of that team as well. Came on board, I think, in 78, wins the Ulster Championship in 79, does it again in 85 and 88, Division 1 national title in 85. Like David was talking there about the sports psychology element, diet, nutrition, and just being ahead of the curve seemed to be a big thing with Seán as well. It's hard to believe that in 1979 he was thinking of things like diet and nutrition.
Yes, it's amazing now because there's a fortune made now in psychology and all in the sports arena. But Sean's time will be very clear and very definite in his leadership roles, because his presence in the dressing room, it inspired you, because when he talked, you listened. And like when we were doing our training program, like it was the old way. The system in Monaghan up until 1977 was 5 selectors. When Sean came in, the county agreed 1 man, 1 voice with a couple of selectors. And we had a setback in 78, which was a learning curve for Sean too, as well as the team. And 79, that was all rectified by Sean. And the training programs he read up on.
It's mad, and like, you just wanted. What was he like in the dressing room? Like, was it a case of man management? Was he a kind of a gentle manager, or was there times where you maybe didn't want to cross him?
Yes, it's like everything else. Managers are there to manage, not to be liked. Sean knew the right buttons to push on key players. When things were going down, he could always talk to the players at half time individually and as a group, but inspire the players to lead other players. The old story is, it's not how good you are, it's how good you make the players around you. And in our case, Sean done that nicely. He knew the buttons to press and key players. And the 3 times that Sean came back, the 3 times we were in Ulster, unfortunately, it worked out well for a lot of us. And it's unfortunate we met Munster each time we won Ulster. And we were very unlucky. He was instilling belief into the players, but some of the players, because it was Kerry, they were waiting for the rebound to Kerry, and it did come back, but there wasn't enough players believed that could actually beat this great Kerry team, and we almost stepped across the line. And that was the one thing we always talked about after when Sean, when we meet up. It was the fact that those couple of decisions changed the fortune of Monaghan football. We performed very well, played very well, but we didn't cross the line, and that was all. And even lately on the Champions League 2, we almost got there, but we just failed in that final kick.
This is 85, yeah. This is when you're taking on Miko's great team, and brought them to a replay, was it?
In 85, the replay, and we had our chances. The one thing we had against Kerry, we won more possession, but they were able to neutralise us in possession-wise and convert what they had. They took their chances. We just missed out on it. But like everything else, there's no reruns in a match like that. You get your opportunity, you take it. And Sean was always inspiring players to exert what they have on the field, in the training field, to go out and perform it on the day. And that's one thing that he led from the Scotch Club to the Irish team, and most of all to Monaghan, where he really lifted the players. Every time he came back in, players responded. Because in 88, Jerry McCabe and myself were slightly put on a few extra pounds in winter. We wintered well, as the old saying goes. And I remember we trained on a Sunday morning on New Year's Day, and it was a 15-minute run, and I think I lasted 3 minutes 30-something seconds, and Jerry must have read about 7 minutes. And come Tuesday night in St. McCartan's, he put the weighing scales in front of the players in the field, and he says, right, Nudie and Jerry, up in front of us, he says, we're not going to win anything unless you boys are fit. And we responded, and Niall Minor, very dedicated, notified everything, and the rest is history. We produced the performance to win that. And again, up against Cork, we failed. But the one thing that Sean did in that time was we qualified for the National League for the playoffs that stage. That's where we generated our funds for the county. We qualified up to 10 years for the quarterfinals and semi-finals of the National League, which was phenomenal for the team we had. And we weren't down at the cabin of us. We were Monaghan, and we won a national title, our first national title, and it was absolutely fantastic. And that was the cornerstone you could say about Seán McCague. His legacy is respect, and respect all those around you. You perform on the day. The one thing you have to prepare well, and in doing that, Sean had dealt that in detail to us. And we story in '79 when he was looking at that wee bit of edge on teams to get into into the playoff to make sure on the day of a match, he came out with the glucose sweet. It was instant energy into the bloodstream, and never forget, he give this sweet to us before the match goes out. Boys, it'll give you that wee bit edge. And even though it didn't, to some players, you felt when you took this, it was, you were doing the right thing to get that edge, and that's what Seán was looking, that wee edge to step across.
It's the psychology of it, I suppose, more than anything. Like David, just reading some of the tribute to Seán since his passing. Like big family, and I know a staunch family man as well too, Seán, by all accounts. Reading that he donated a kidney as well to his brother Gabriel back in the early 80s, like 2 brothers of 7 in a family of 10. So I mean that kind of speaks volumes of the man as well.
It does, yeah. And even just as I'm reflecting on my comments earlier on, it was genuine interest in people. I suppose he got that from his mother, ran a bar and a shop in Scotstoun village. Her husband was a guard and spent a lot of time away, and so his mother was, say, a natural people's person as well. I suppose that's where he learned his values, and those values, transcend the whole family. I suppose Nudie mentioned legacy, and Seán has a fantastic legacy locally and around the county and nationally as well. But I think his greatest legacy are his children and his girls, and the way they have carried themselves over the last number of years through his illness. And I suppose they, I was looking and talking to a few of them last night, and it really resonated with me. I suppose their joie de vivre and their fun and fairness, and those are the 2 characters that I associate maybe most with Seán. He was fantastic company, fantastic fun to be around, and they're the same, and his grandchildren as well. And so his legacy will live on through them, and it'll impact on our club and our community for generations to come through those people.
It's mad because then he had a separate legacy as well, aside from his incredible coaching career, and as you said, he was part of the international rules setups as well. But first Monaghan man to be GAA president from 2000 to 2003, and a key role in a number of different initiatives. I suppose one of the most memorable, David, was Rule 21. So this course rule banning members of the British security forces from playing GAA, and he overturned that. And it was this is only a couple of years after the Good Friday Agreement, but I know Seán probably had to deal with a lot of stern opposition to even reversing that up in Ulster especially, but he got it done, and that's something that strikes me about Seán, that as GAA president he got things done.
Yeah, and I suppose I remember at that time that was a particularly, I suppose, emotive issue around, I suppose, the border counties at that time, and so Seán, as an Ulster man, I suppose engaging with the 6 counties in Northern Ireland was a very difficult one for him personally. But again, he believed in fairness. I suppose he's a man of his time in terms of context, and he knew that the context and that things were shifting in Northern Ireland, and the GAA, I suppose, a massive community partner, and the major sporting body in the country had a role to play. And I think that he on reflection, it was a major move of the GAA at the time, and it took huge leadership, and he showed that leadership at the time and managed to, I suppose, engage with all parties, listen to all parties, and through I suppose, a democratic process, he led that. And I think on reflection, it was the right move at the time, and there's been massive benefits from that in the last 25 years.
I suppose one of the great things, Nudie, was the fact that for people who aren't aware, you're a Castleblaney Fogs man, and look, 3-time All-Star as well. So anytime you were coming up against Scottstown back in those days at club level, I guess that was the big rivalry. They were the 2 big clubs at the time. Still are 2 of the big clubs in Monaghan as well. But what was it like to come up against Seán McCague's Scottstown? Because even at county level then, I suppose it speaks volumes of him, the fact that he was able to bring all those players together, that it's such a rivalry at club level.
Yes, Johnny, there's no question about that. When Scottstown played Blaney in the early stages, the old saying, it was war without bullets. And it was great because you remember you dated the county team on the Scottstown team, and you had 5 of the Castleblaney Fogs team. And 5 of the 6 backs of the Scottstown team were actually the county team. So there was no love lost the day of a match. But the one thing Scottstown and Blaney had above other teams, they had respect. And when the game was over, it was over. And when Seán was in the background, you just knew the Scottstown were prepared in detail, as we were. And we had great finals, great memories. And the great thing about the comradeship you make up in those battles, that always stuck with us. The thing about it, Scottstown and Castleblaney, whatever happened in the field stayed in the field. When Seán McCague was in the background, the respect we had for one another as a player, he was also a great friend. And when our reunion there came back in 2013, 25 years of the Ulster Championship, Seán's health was slightly deteriorating, but the one thing he always, he ignited when the players, the 79 team got together, the 85 and 88. It really gave us that wee bit of lift. And Seán carried himself with distinction in everywhere. And when he walked into that room, even when we were in the Western Arms with the gathering, he just had that presence about it, and you respected that. Every step that he took, you were walking in the path of a man that had gained respect nationally, Ulster area, but more importantly in his own county and his own club. And everyone respected his decisions. And that's what we benefited an awful lot as players. And a lot have been very successful in management, coaching staff, and business. And they all can thank Porrick Duffy, and his good friend Seán McCague. That's the way they were a great pair. And Porrick was in the GAC when Seán became president, but they were always part of the family, and that's what made Seán different than anyone else. And you mentioned Scotland and Castleblayney were fanatical battles, but to hold the respect in Ulster, no other team or county run the championship the same day as Castleblayney and Scotland became when we were playing in the semi-finals or final. The opposition we call Cavan, Armagh, Down, none of them put on championships the same time as Castleblayney and Scotland, because a lot of the neutrals went to see that match. And Monaghan football was very strong. Scotland went on to win 3 Ulster clubs. Castleblayney had 2. So we carried the form of the county into our club scene, and that was a respect to, number one, the county itself, but the leadership that Seán McCague instilled in teams and players will continue, and it will be talked about in generations to come, as David highlighted. Great family, everything. Bernie and the girls, absolutely fabulous. Were there all the time for Seán through his illness, and very, very good.
It's funny, we started off talking about legacy, at the start of the show. Like that conversation just show you the legacy, and it's that imprint even after death. And you imagine the GAA or people in Monaghan will be looking, how do we honour this man posthumously because of the legacy? That do we name something after him or whatever? And I'm sure that's already in the thoughts of many. Yeah, I'm sure it will. And just to give the final word to yourself, David, I know there'll be stories galore at the wake and the funeral in the coming days as well. And that removal is Saturday morning, 11:30. To arrive at St Mary's Chapel in Erbal in Monaghan for 12 noon funeral mass this Saturday, and he'll be buried in the adjoining cemetery as well. You're going to get so many stories, David, and it's lovely to hear Nudie talking there about the 25th anniversary of 1988 back in 2013, and to hear people. I guess people will be remembering now the last time they spoke to Seán and the stories they took from him. But I'm sure as your own life goes forward in your career, that stories and legacy will be something you'll take with you from Seán's life.
Absolutely, Shane. We've learned so many lessons from him. So the greatest lesson he gave us, I suppose, and Nudie referenced it earlier, I suppose the great heights that he managed to reach in the GAA, and I suppose the people that he met there. And we would see him on a Sunday mingling with state dignitaries, maybe in Croke Park, and people in the upper echelons of the GAA. And then on a Sunday evening, he would always return home, and he would treat everyone at home equally with the same respect and the same dignity he would treat those people that he met during the day. And I think that's a fantastic quality to have, that humility, and that's where he felt most comfortable. He was a keen huntsman in his earlier days. He wasn't a great footballer. He sort of a back injury sort of curtailed that, but he was a great person and a great man. And Nudie said that the players that played under him, he changed a huge amount of lives, and I can say that personally as well. The influence he had in my life is hugely significant, and the single biggest influence on me was Seán. And that's, I think I met loads of different people yesterday, the same story to say. Actually, I met a Ballybay man yesterday. I thought he made a lovely reference. He said he was our Hefo, that he led a generation of people to have a self-belief around who they were and what they could be. And I think that's ultimately his legacy for Monaghan people, that it gives them a pep on their step and an inch in their height, and they can be proud of who they are. And Seán played a massive role in that. That's a great way to put it. Our Hefo, Monaghan's Hefo. Lads, David, Nudie, thanks a million for joining us. I know it's not easy so soon after Seán's death, but really appreciate you both taking the time to chat to us this morning.
Thank you very much.